January 1943. The jungle is still, but not quiet. Moist air hangs between the trees, heavy enough to feel on the skin. Somewhere beyond the tangled undergrowth, metal clicks softly, almost lost beneath insects and distant artillery. American infantrymen remain motionless, eyes fixed on the darkness. For days, Japanese snipers have owned this stretch of ground. Each movement has been punished. Each exposed helmet has drawn a single, precise shot. Near the edge of the perimeter, one soldier lies prone behind a fallen log. His rifle rests steady in the mud. It is not standard issue. It does not carry the prestige of a military arsenal or the reputation of a battlefield-proven weapon. Some had smiled when they saw it. Others quietly doubted it would last long in the jungle. The rifle's barrel points toward a line of trees that has already claimed American lives. The soldier exhales slowly. A single shot breaks the night. Somewhere in the darkness, another Japanese sniper will not fire again. And over the next 4 days, disbelief, on both sides of the line, will begin to give way to something harder to ignore. What made this moment possible begins long before the jungle ever closed in. By the time American forces reached the deep jungles of the Pacific, the war had already reshaped the expectations of every soldier who stepped ashore. The conflict that began in Europe had become a global struggle, and by late 1942 and early 1943, the United States found itself fighting an enemy whose methods were fundamentally different from those it had prepared for before the war. The Pacific theater was not defined by sweeping armored breakthroughs or long, open front lines. It was defined by heat, isolation, and concealment. Islands were fought over ridge by ridge. Jungles erased visibility. Sound carried unpredictably. A rifle shot could come from 50 yards, or 5, and never reveal its source. The Imperial Japanese Army had adapted to these conditions with ruthless efficiency. Snipers were not assigned only as specialists. Many infantrymen were trained to operate independently, using camouflage, patience, and terrain to impose psychological pressure on advancing forces. A single hidden rifle could halt an entire platoon. A sniper did not need to win a battle outright. He only needed to slow it down, exhaust it, and instill fear. American units arriving in the Pacific often encountered this reality for the first time. Training back home had emphasized marksmanship and fire discipline, but it had been conducted on open ranges, against visible targets, under controlled conditions. The jungle erased those assumptions. Engagements were close, sudden, and often invisible. Men learned quickly that survival depended less on firepower and more on awareness, restraint, and the ability to adapt. By early 1943, U.S. forces were engaged in hard-fought campaigns across places like Guadalcanal and New Guinea. Supply lines were stretched. Equipment suffered in the humidity. Standard-issue rifles performed reliably, but the environment exposed limitations that no manual could fully address. Wood swelled, metal rusted, optics fogged. What mattered most was not what a weapon was supposed to do, but what it could do after days in the mud. Japanese snipers exploited this relentlessly. They favored elevated positions in trees, reverse slopes, and concealed spider holes dug just deep enough to hide a body and a rifle barrel. Shots were timed carefully, often fired only once before relocating. Sometimes, the sniper waited hours for a single opportunity. Sometimes days. The effect was cumulative. Men stopped moving freely. Patrols slowed. Confidence eroded. Reports from the front described units pinned down not by mass fire, but by uncertainty. Commanders noted that progress was often delayed by the belief that a sniper was present, even when none could be confirmed. This was a weapon in itself. It was into this environment that American ingenuity, training, and an unexpected piece of equipment would collide with a reputation that had gone unchallenged for too long. Before the war, the United States had a relationship with firearms unlike any other industrial power. Civilian ownership was widespread, and marksmanship was not limited to military institutions. Hunting, competitive shooting, and recreational rifle use were woven into everyday life across much of the country. By the late 1930s, American citizens could order rifles through catalogs and have them delivered by mail. Reliable, accurate weapons produced by commercial manufacturers that competed on performance rather than doctrine. When war came, this culture quietly followed many soldiers overseas. The U.S. Army standardized equipment for efficiency and logistics, issuing rifles designed to meet broad operational needs. Yet within units, especially early in the war, there remained room for personal familiarity. Soldiers trusted what they knew. Some brought hunting experience. Others brought preferred shooting habits. In a few cases, they brought rifles they had used long before enlistment, legal at the time, accepted by commanders who valued effectiveness over appearance. To some, these civilian rifles looked out of place in a military environment. They lacked the visual uniformity of issued weapons. They carried no official designation that inspired confidence. In the jungle, where moisture warped stocks and fouled actions, skepticism came easily. A rifle ordered from a catalog seemed ill-suited to a battlefield that devoured equipment without mercy. Japanese forces viewed American soldiers through a different lens. Pre-war doctrine emphasized discipline, sacrifice, and obedience to the system. Individualism was considered a liability. The idea that a single soldier, armed with a non-standard weapon, could challenge trained snipers ran counter to everything Japanese military culture emphasized. Superiority was expected to come from cohesion and doctrine, not improvisation. This difference mattered. Japanese snipers were trained to dominate terrain psychologically as much as physically. Their success relied on the assumption that American forces would respond predictably, hesitating, bunching up, calling for firepower rather than counter-sniping. In many cases, this assumption held true. Heavy weapons could clear an area, but they also revealed positions and consumed time. What changed in this instance was not a sudden technological leap, but a quiet convergence of skill, patience, and opportunity. The soldier behind the rifle understood concealment. He understood how long to wait. He understood that in the jungle, the first shot mattered more than any that followed. For days would prove that reputation alone could not protect a position. And as the balance of fear began to shift, the story moved from background conditions into the individual decisions that shaped the outcome. Angle 1. The human element. The American infantryman in the jungle carried more than his equipment. He carried fatigue, uncertainty, and the quiet pressure of being watched. Japanese snipers understood this intimately. Their presence was designed to make soldiers feel small, exposed, and hunted. Every snapped twig became suspicious. Every pause in gunfire felt deliberate. What separated this moment from countless others was not fearlessness, but discipline. The soldier behind the rifle did not rush. He did not chase targets. He accepted stillness as a weapon. Hours passed without movement. Muscles cramped. Sweat soaked into clothing. The jungle demanded patience, and patience became survival. His familiarity with his rifle mattered here. It was not an extension of regulation, but of habit. He knew its trigger weight, its balance, the way the sight settled after a breath. Under pressure, familiarity reduced hesitation. When a shape finally revealed itself, a flicker of unnatural symmetry in the foliage, there was no debate. The shot was measured. Final. Each confirmed hit did more than remove a threat. It restored confidence. Nearby soldiers began to move again. Patrols resumed with purpose. The psychological weight lifted not because the danger vanished, but because it could be answered. Angle 2. Tactical reality. Japanese sniper doctrine relied on concealment and restraint. Snipers rarely fired twice from the same position. Movement was calculated, often occurring at night or during rain. This made counter-sniping difficult. American units initially relied on volume of fire or indirect weapons, methods that cleared ground but did not always eliminate the source. This rifle changed that equation by matching patience with precision. Instead of suppressing suspected positions, the soldier observed patterns. Snipers needed to see. They needed to adjust. Each movement created an opportunity. When a shot came, it revealed just enough. By staying silent between engagements, the American counter-sniper inverted the rhythm. The jungle became a waiting game the Japanese had not expected to lose. Angle 3. Technology without myth. The rifle itself was not magical. It was accurate, well-maintained, and paired with a shooter who understood its limits. Its civilian origin did not make it superior, but it made it trusted. In an environment where equipment failure could mean death, trust mattered. The rifle did what it was asked to do, every time. That consistency became its true advantage. The pattern was forming. And patterns, once recognized, invite response. Angle 4. The enemy's perspective. Japanese units were trained to read the battlefield through absence as much as presence. When American movement resumed in areas once locked down by sniper fire, it did not go unnoticed. Silence where a sniper had operated was itself a signal. Patrols that advanced without hesitation suggested something had changed. Japanese snipers began to adjust. Positions were abandoned sooner. Shots became rarer. The confidence that came from unseen dominance started to erode. In some sectors, Japanese troops assumed that multiple American marksmen had been deployed. The idea that a single rifleman was responsible did not fit doctrine. The response was caution, not aggression. This hesitation created gaps. Areas once controlled through fear became contested again. For a force reliant on psychological pressure, that loss was significant. Angle 5. Leadership and command. American junior officers paid close attention. Reports filtered up quickly, short, factual, unemotional. Confirmed sniper eliminations. Reduced casualties. Improved movement. No exaggeration was needed. The results spoke clearly. Rather than intervening, commanders allowed the pattern to continue. They understood that disruption could undo what had been gained. The lesson was simple. When effectiveness appears, preserve it. The rifle was not standardized. The method was not formalized. But the outcome aligned with mission goals. This flexibility stood in contrast to more rigid structures on the opposing side. Angle 6. Psychological shift. Fear in combat rarely disappears. It changes hands. By the third day, American soldiers no longer whispered about unseen shooters. They spoke openly. Confidence returned in measured steps. Meanwhile, Japanese snipers began to assume they were being watched even when they were not. The same uncertainty they had imposed now worked against them. When fear shifts, momentum follows. And momentum was about to collide with the final tally. The third day began without ceremony. No artillery preparation. No sweeping advance. Just the slow reoccupation of ground that had been avoided for nearly a week. American infantry moved deliberately, not boldly. Every step was tested. Every halt observed. The jungle had not changed, but the rules governing it had. By mid-morning, the pattern was undeniable. Japanese sniper fire, once frequent and precise, had become sporadic. When shots did come, they were hurried. Less calculated. The discipline that defined earlier engagements was thinning. From a concealed position overlooking a shallow ravine, the American rifleman waited again. He had learned the terrain by absence, where movement should have been but wasn't. He noted broken foliage that did not belong to the wind. a faint depression in the earth where rainwater gathered unnaturally. Late in the afternoon, a shot cracked from the far side of the ravine. It missed. That alone was telling. The response was not immediate. Minutes passed. Then more. When the Japanese sniper adjusted, exposing a fraction too much shoulder, the countershot came clean and final. Another confirmed kill. Elsewhere along the line, similar silences followed. Japanese snipers, who had dominated lanes of movement, were simply gone. Bodies were not always recovered. Sometimes only rifles remained, abandoned in haste. In 4 separate instances documented by patrol reports, sniper nests were found vacated without engagement. By the end of the 3rd day, the count stood at 8. Commanders did not announce it. Soldiers did not celebrate. In the Pacific, survival discouraged ceremony. But something fundamental had shifted. The jungle no longer felt owned. As darkness fell, the rifleman cleaned his weapon carefully, aware that the most dangerous moment often came just before certainty. The 4th day would decide whether this was an anomaly or a turning point. The 4th day opened under a low gray sky. Rain moved in sheets through the canopy, flattening sound and blurring distance. For snipers, this was normally an advantage. Visibility dropped. Movement became harder to detect. Rifles grew slick with moisture. It did not stop the pattern. Shortly after dawn, an American patrol advancing along a narrow ridgeline drew fire from a familiar direction. The shot was accurate, but late. The patrol took cover as trained, not in panic but in expectation. The rifleman had already shifted position, anticipating the line of sight. This time, the Japanese sniper fired twice. The second shot confirmed the location. The response came without urgency. One measured round. A pause. Then another, ensuring the position was neutralized. When the patrol reached the site, they found a carefully prepared hide, abandoned equipment, and a body partially concealed by leaves and rain-soaked cloth. By midday, 2 more sniper engagements followed a similar pattern. Neither lasted long. Each ended with silence. Each ended with the same rifle. By late afternoon, the count reached 11. There were no further sniper attacks that day. None the next. Patrols reported open ground where none had existed before. Movement corridors reopened. Casualty reports reflected the change immediately. Fewer head wounds, fewer sudden losses. Japanese units withdrew sniper assets from the area. Whether through command decision or individual judgment, the result was the same. The threat that had defined the sector vanished almost overnight. The rifle that had been dismissed as unsuitable for combat had delivered a measurable, documented outcome in 4 days of sustained pressure. What followed was not legend, but consequence. The immediate battlefield effects were clear and measurable. American patrols moved with renewed confidence. Routes previously avoided due to sniper threat were reopened. Casualty rates in this sector dropped noticeably, as documented in unit logs and after-action reports. For soldiers, the psychological weight lifted. The jungle, once an oppressive cage, now felt negotiable. Commanders took note. Reports described not only the elimination of 11 Japanese snipers over 4 days, but also the broader implications. A small number of disciplined, patient soldiers could neutralize a threat that had previously required coordinated assaults and heavy fire. Efficiency had replaced brute force. Precision had supplanted fear. On the Japanese side, unit cohesion experienced subtle but significant strain. Commanders documented unexpected withdrawals and hesitation in patrol patterns. Snipers, long considered force multipliers, were rendered ineffective when faced with unpredictable and measured American responses. Traditional doctrine, emphasizing stealth and control of terrain, was suddenly vulnerable to disciplined observation and targeted action. The psychological edge that had allowed Japanese snipers to dominate the jungle dissipated almost entirely in these days. Logistical reports highlight another factor. The rifle itself required minimal maintenance, was reliable in the humid, wet environment, and had proven effective in multiple engagements without modification. Whereas standard-issue weapons occasionally suffered from moisture, swelling, or fouling, the mail-order rifle, paired with a soldier who knew its handling intimately, functioned consistently. In small unit operations, reliability of equipment became as decisive as manpower or strategy. The ripple effect extended beyond the immediate engagements. Nearby units began adjusting their patrol strategies based on these observations. Awareness of sniper threats evolved from a generalized fear to a calculated risk. Commanders increasingly emphasized skill, observation, and deliberate patience over reactive firepower. The precedent had been set. In jungle warfare, adaptation and precision could outweigh doctrine and reputation. The stage was set for the final assessment of this operation's significance, as both sides confronted the tangible consequences of 4 days that changed the dynamic of the sector. The broader consequences of these 4 days became evident in unit diaries and operational reports circulated across the Pacific theater. American forces documented the shift not as an isolated incident, but as a case study in small unit effectiveness. The success underscored the importance of marksmanship training, patience, and intimate familiarity with one's weapon, elements often overshadowed in large-scale strategic planning. Japanese commanders, in contrast, faced a quiet but growing crisis. Sniper effectiveness relied not just on skill, but on the perception of invincibility. The sudden neutralization of multiple snipers by a single soldier disrupted that perception. Morale, once reinforced by fear of unseen adversaries, faltered. Reports mention increased caution in patrols, hesitation in forward positions, and even misattribution of sniper eliminations to larger American forces. The psychological impact was as significant as the physical. At the tactical level, lessons filtered upward. Units recognized that counter-sniper operations could be accomplished with deliberate observation, minimal exposure, and judicious use of high-accuracy rifles. Soldiers who previously avoided movement began reclaiming lost terrain, increasing supply line efficiency and operational tempo. Skirmishes that would have been deferred or risked high casualties were now approached with a blend of caution and calculated aggression. The event also illuminated the interplay between equipment and human skill. The mail-order rifle, dismissed by peers and presumed inadequate by enemy observers, had delivered consistent performance under adverse conditions. Its reliability reinforced the principle that the effectiveness of a weapon in combat depends as much on the operator's knowledge and discipline as on the manufacturer's specifications. Reports from the field highlighted how this balance between human adaptation and technological capability could redefine outcomes in small-scale engagements. Finally, the episode influenced doctrinal thought. The military recognized that flexible approaches, leveraging both individual initiative and practical equipment, could yield disproportionate results in complex environments. Sniper threats, once considered insurmountable in jungle terrain, were now manageable. The psychological dominance previously enjoyed by Japanese forces was challenged, setting a precedent for similar counter-sniper operations elsewhere. The 4-day engagement concluded not with fanfare, but with a quiet recalibration of expectations. Soldiers adjusted, commanders noted, and the jungle, once a domain of fear, became a theater of opportunity. This shift in both perception and action formed the bridge to a broader reflection on the event's enduring significance. In the quiet that followed, the significance of those 4 days extended beyond the immediate tally of 11 snipers. It was a demonstration of how adaptability, patience, and disciplined skill could overturn assumptions that had long governed battlefield behavior. The mail-order rifle, unassuming in appearance, became a symbol not of extraordinary firepower, but of reliability in the hands of a soldier who understood it completely. The engagement revealed the subtle interplay between human psychology and warfare. Fear, once concentrated in the enemy's favor, shifted incrementally through measured action. Confidence, once eroded by unseen threats, returned through observation and evidence. In war, the intangible, trust in one's training, in one's equipment, in one's own judgment, can weigh as heavily as artillery or strategy. For the broader war effort, these 4 days offered a lesson in humility and respect. Even a highly trained, disciplined opponent could be undone by patience, precision, and the quiet confidence born of preparation. The event underscores a fundamental truth about conflict. Victory does not always emerge from overwhelming force. It often emerges from understanding, adaptation, and the uncelebrated acts of individuals who seize opportunity within chaos. And in that realization lies the enduring legacy. Not the rifle itself, nor the individual soldier, but the demonstration that careful observation, strategic patience, and skillful execution can alter the course of engagements, even in environments designed to favor fear and concealment. History remembers the outcomes, but it is in these small, precise actions that the character of warfare, and of those who endure it, truly reveals itself.